It is December 6th, 2023. I'm, of course, flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
And after a week full of great primetime games, at the end of this podcast, we get to break down this week's Thursday night game, the New England Patriots at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Two games where they gave the equivalent of a stone cold stunner to the other team in a row, both Sunday night and Monday night.
I mean, Thursday was a great game. Sunday was a great game. Monday was a great game, even though I think two of those we weren't expecting to be as good as they were.
Yeah,
But
Seahawks
yes, the reward
actually
is
put up a fight.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's week 14, everybody. Fantasy
Bucks
playoffs
won a
start next week.
sloppy, wet, sloppy game. Yuck.
Yeah, fantasy playoffs start next week. Of course, everybody's getting their last chance to get into the playoffs. I think I've only got one team out of the 14 behind me that is officially eliminated. There's at least one or two more that probably have a snowball's chance in hell. But all in all, pretty good fantasy season so far.
Be sort of like the old classic Vince McMahon theme that comes out. You got no chance, no chance in hell. You got.
Anywho, we're going to talk about week 13. More of the carnage. The some of these quarterback matchups in week number 14 are just going to be spectacular. Joel continues to run away in the pick'em, which is fun.
Well, speaking about looking ahead to the future, one has to talking about closing thought, final thought. How about an opening thought? Do teams going forward with the quarterback carnage that we have had in 2023, I think we almost have had at least a quarter, almost maybe a half of the entire NFL is now going on their second or even like New York, the third freaking string quarterback. Going ahead to 2024, our general managers, front office, and coaches going to have to huddle up and figure out, okay, where are we going to take away from the team and put that salary cap, that money into a competent backup in case the worst happens.
The problem is there's not that many competent backups. I mean, you got your Mike Whites, who's now behind Tua in Miami. Unfortunately for a Dolphins fan, he hasn't had to see any action yet, but we saw him last year with the Jets when he had his chance. He played pretty well. We saw Jake Browning on Monday Night Football come in and play pretty well, but we also saw Tim Boyle play so bad he got cut. Yeah. I mean, how many competent true backups are there? Yeah, okay, Brett Rippon's your answer. Cool. How many competent second string quarterbacks are there really where, again, when we talked about the Jaguars, the old Peyton Manning quote from the Colts is, if Peyton Manning gets hurt, we're screwed. We don't practice being screwed. If you lose one of these guys, you're not replacing Joe Burrow with anything near Joe Burrow. Browning was very good. I just don't think there's enough good ones out there.
Turns out that nagging injury turned out to be quite important after all for Mr.
Burrow. The big thing I'm wondering about for next year, because of course we talk a lot of fantasy football on the show because we're fantasy football nerds. Do people in single quarterback leagues, 10, 12 team leagues, where typically you only draft one, do they maybe draft a second one? So, okay, yeah, I've got a Mahomes, I've got an Allen, I've got a Hurts, I've got a top flight guy. That guy goes down. Well, I still have a Fields or a Lawrence or a Goff or something that I
even a Mayfield
comfortable playing. You know, you still have some guys in the waivers. So every team in a 12-team league takes two. You still have 6, 8, 12 guys out there, but they're not going to be very good. Whereas, like, I had Justin Fields. He went down in the league. I picked up Jared Goff. I'm not dropping Jared Goff because at this point I can't get him back if I do because of how bad things have gotten. I wonder if that's going to be how it is next year.
I doubt you had any shares of Pickett, but what about T-Law?
No shares of him anywhere. Fortunately, I actually traded him away in a dynasty league. I have Deshaun Watson in that league as well, but I also have one Jalen Hurts. So I have a starter for and Aiden O'Connell's my backup to the backup.
So brotherly shove.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about it. But I've been
Roger Goodell apparently wants to get rid of.
Yeah, that play's gonna go. But knock on wood, I've been fairly lucky with the quarterback injury bug not hitting any of my teams. But I also have a lot of Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, a lot in Dynasty. Tua, which that's a little risky, and then a lot of Brock Purdy this year, which has been, I've been okay. But there are a lot of teams that, hypothetically, you're rolling on the Dak Prescott train right now, and that is a great train to be on because it is dominating. But, Hassan Reddick comes in and cleans his clock, and he's out for 3 to 4 weeks. There are going to be teams that have anchored their fantasy future on Dak Prescott that is one hit from just gone. It's just over. And that's how this fantasy season has been at the quarterback position. Of course, we've had injuries to running backs. I'm wearing Devon Achan's jersey. He went down a couple of times. He's finally back. Looked great this last weekend. Derrick Henry had a concussion scare. Of course, Derek Carr's been now 2 concussions in his last 2 games played. So that's a little Tua territory from last year.
Sports Shuffle Audible. Should Derek Carr have retired after last year?
No, he shouldn't have retired. But I think Dennis Allen's the big problem in New Orleans. I think the head coach needs to go. I think a lot of Saints fans would agree with me on that. But I don't know if Derek Carr is the right fit for that team. They need a guy that can sling the ball over the field, like Jameis Winston, with a little bit more control over not turning the ball over. But Derek Carr is not the answer there. And I don't think he should have retired. He's still too young. He's still too talented to retire. If nothing else, he would have been one of those backups a GM, like you were saying in the beginning, should be clamoring to get because, well, okay, Tua goes down, you go to Derek Carr. It's a lot better than Tua going down and going to Mike White or whoever the backup for Josh Allen is, because I don't know that name offhand. Yeah, but Derek Carr's been a little bit of a disappointment. The Saints and the entire NFC South have been a little bit of a disappointment as well. So let's get into the disappointment that was Week 13 in a lot of ways. And we'll start with a quick recap of the Thursday game. We did a full one last week, but Cowboys win 41-35 over the Seattle Seahawks. Cowboys have not beaten a team that currently has an above 500 record. Yes, the Seahawks were 6-5. The Jets were also 1-0 when the Cowboys beat them, but no one's counting that one either, so I'm not counting this one. Seahawks fall to 6-6, still squarely in the playoff race, but the Cowboys 9-3, still trying to win the 1 seed in the conference and have a big battle with Philadelphia on Sunday night.
Yeah, up for this game, definitely DK down. Oh boy, the officials is a terrible night. Terrible for the crew with 19 accepted penalties between the teams for are you ready for this? 257 yards. There were also 3 flags picked up and a number of no calls heavily favoring the Cowboys.
Yeah. As much as I don't want to talk about this next game, we might as well get it over with. The Patriots have kept their opponents to 10 points or fewer the last 3 games and have lost all 3, losing this one in sloppy, rainy New England 6-0 to the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert is going back to being the trash can. If you are new to what I've said about Justin Herbert, I called him a trash can for the first year and a half of his career. I was proven wrong, and now he's proven me right for the last 2 years or so.
Unfortunately, I agree with you.
Yeah, he has looked absolutely terrible. The Patriots defense is great, but that offense doesn't matter if it's Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham, whoever. You could put Joel and I back there. It would be just as effective as it is right now. The Patriots lose Ramondre Stevenson in this game, but neither team looks great. The Chargers did open the practice window for Joshua Palmer, the wide receiver, going to be a big step up from rookie Quentin Johnson, who has become the joke of the draft this year, drafted 21st overall, and he has a lot fewer yards than 5th, 6th round receivers like Dontavian Wicks and Puka Nacua. Patriots fall to 2-10, the number 2 pick in the draft right now. The Chargers improve to 5-7, but their season is essentially all but over as they are 12th in the conference.
Being as you're more athletic than I am, I think your QBR might be significantly better than mine in that hypothetical situation. The ups and the downs. The up was when this game ended. If there was ever a game when a coach should have been canned after winning, this was the one. The down. Ramondre Stevenson, if you have any shares of him, looked to sustain a severe leg injury early in the game. Looked like a season ender. Time for Zeke to feast.
Yeah. Zeke's going to get the lion's share of the work, but this offense is just going absolutely nowhere, and we will see them tomorrow night against the Steelers. Yeah. Next up, Lions win 33-28 in a game that featured the most gruesome injury of the weekend, and it happened to a member of the chain gang as this leg went the wrong direction. Fortunately, he will be okay after some surgery, but No long-term expected damage. The Lions raced out to a 21-0 lead and then had to hold on for dear life. Derek Carr knocked out of this one once again, but Laporta, very good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, very good. Gibbs, Montgomery getting the job done for the Lions, who are 9-3. Again, they're in a battle for that number one seed in the NFC, something we're not used to saying about the Detroit Lions. The New Orleans Saints, 5-7, still only a game behind Atlanta for first place in the NFC South. So plenty to play for the well below 500 New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, Sam Laporta definite up as the rookie TE continues to surpass all expectations and sets up a franchise record for receiving yards in the game by Lions tight end. You're just going, what? Yeah, in the potential wasteland that is the TE landscape. I tend to think of that the Who song instead of the other wasteland as me. It's a TE wasteland. A TE, yeah, but Laporta just provides refuge and has massive boom potential on any given week for the offense. And the other one, just yeah, he was questionable heading into this one, but of course, Chris Olave, as he worked through concussion protocol, as I saw in the Reddit, it was the post that Chris Olave to play today per source. The very first post, very first reply fly-in was the Neuro has Olave on his fantasy team, and like everyone's going like, So yeah, Sunday racked up 109 buck 19 in the contest, and oh yeah, famous Jameis and his turnovers are making Olave owners and managers very happy that he's starting this week. The Downs, yeah, boy, yeah, that would be Jahmyr Gibbs because the league's best workhorse, David Montgomery, he is back, and it's turning it back into a running back by committee. It's not bad, but not exactly what you were expecting.
Yeah, there are a couple teams, Detroit, Miami, that you can have the running back by committee and have one piece of it and be okay. Gibbs, Montgomery for Detroit, Mostert, and Achane for Miami. You'll be just fine with both of those, but there are going to be some up and down weeks if you have any of those. This happened to be the down week for Gibbs. Alvin Kamara, great week. And Chris Olave was doing good with Derek Carr, but he'll be fine with Jameis Winston for fantasy purposes. Next game is
or even
another
perhaps a little Taysom Hill. Who the heck knows with Dennis
Maybe
Allen?
the next game is another one we, I guess, technically have to talk about. We have to talk about the Jets. Falcons win 13-8 over the New York Jets in a game that is just as exciting as the score would have you think. The best play of the game was probably the safety on Bijan against Bijan Robinson. The Falcons win, go to 6-6. The Jets played so bad they cut what was their starting quarterback. They'll be going back to Zach Wilson after unfounded reports of him being reluctant to go back to the starting role surface this week. They have determined that is not true. But the Jets 4-8, their season all but done. There's still the hope that Aaron Rodgers comes back and maybe we see at least what this team could have been this season. I think at this point though, this season is too far gone. You're going to let him rest. The Falcons 6-6. For as bad as the record is, and as bad as this team is to watch, and as unholy hell that this head coach likes to put fantasy players through, the Falcons at 6-6 lead the NFC South and currently are the 4th seed.
Yeah, the up for this game, if there was one other than the end of the game, I'm noticing that's a theme here for Week 13. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge to find a bright spot. But it's the Jets. DSC is they literally can fly all around the field, and they almost outscored the offense, which isn't all that hard to do. Down, of course, yeah, you started Brees Hall. He's upper talented, but when he can barely break a yard per carry because he's being hit behind the line, that just leaves you guessing about your faith in him going into the fantasy playoffs. This is not the time of year you want the super studs to sort of fade away.
I wonder how many teams with Bijan Robinson are actually going to be making the fantasy playoffs. I only have him in one league. It happens to be the 12-1 team right behind my ear. But that team also got very lucky in a lot of other ways in the draft, and he's my flex option, which if you Bijan's your flex, you probably did just fine this season. Next up, another team we're going to see tomorrow night, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yay.
Sans Kenny Pickett. Of course, Kenny Pickett going down with the ankle injury. He did have surgery on that ankle. This game took forever. 2 long weather delays in this one, but the Cardinals win 24-10. Kyler Murray, Marquise Brown still not looking great, but one player who is Trey McBride for the Cardinals has been a revelation. James Conner, good revenge game against his former team. Mitch Trubisky going to be starting against Bailey's Happy on Thursday Night Football. We'll get to our picks of that game. Dear God, we have to actually talk about it. But the Steelers fall to 7-5, and now you have the backup quarterback. It really looks like the Ravens have the AFC North pretty much in their full control. They're going to be 2 games up and the only team with their starting quarterback. So Steelers, Browns playing for the Bengals, playing for a wild card spot at this point, but a tough loss to a bad team in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Although that does move the Cardinals from the 2 pick to the 3 pick.
Yeah, up for this game, definitely James Conner coming back to Pittsburgh in the visiting team. He came back home and celebrated with over a buck and 2 touchdowns. You were happy if you started him in fantasy. And down number 1, yeah. Marquise Brown throws up a donut after making the start despite not practicing all week, only to be glued to the hip by one Joey Porter. And a second down. Pittsburgh fans staying dry as the game had 2 different delays due to the heavy outbursts of torrential downpours and the threat of lightning, resulting in the clearing out of the stadium not once but twice, as Pittsburgh fans probably were asking themselves, please, dear God, when is this game going to end?
Yeah, I think it took over 4 hours from start to finish, not including, obviously downtime. That's something you typically see in Tampa, in Miami. This bad weather, lightning delays that,
Bucks
send everybody for
for
cover.
USF happens, as that happened quite often.
Yeah, Alabama USF game got delayed due to weather this season, and Alabama, of course, very controversially in the college football playoffs. That may come up later. I don't know yet. But yeah,
The
weather delay, but the Steelers get a loss.
College football playoffs, you have to have some team snub every year so everyone can have angst and get mad about it for a week.
See, it's maybe this isn't the time for it, but we're going to talk about it real quick. It's one thing to snub a Georgia who doesn't win their conference at 12-1, who is a very good team. It's another to snub an undefeated Power 5 conference champion just because their quarterback got hurt. This one, I mean, the state of Florida is going after the college football playoff committee. They have allocated funds to go and make a lawsuit out of this.
Expand the freaking
That's
playoffs.
coming. That is coming. And I think this is actually the last year of the 4. I may be wrong, but I think next year it goes to 12. I think that's next year. But yeah, they were like, we want to know everybody's vote. We want to know why. We want to know the explanation on why this 13-0 Florida State team didn't get in over a 12-1 Alabama, a 12-1 Texas, a 12-1 Georgia kind of thing. Anyways, we're talking football, NFL football, not college. So let's go back to that. Indianapolis.
Back to the Titans.
Yeah. Indianapolis beats the Titans in overtime, 31-28. A missed extra point late sinks the Titans essentially. Derrick Henry, 2 touchdowns in this game before leaving to be evaluated for a concussion, but he's not in the concussion protocol. But the Colts without Jonathan Taylor, who is not quite ruled out for week 14, by the way, looked pretty good. Zach Moss, not his greatest, but Michael Pittman, the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Gardner Minshew has been, like you said, you want a good backup. Gardner Minshew is a textbook great backup to have on your roster. He's come in since the Anthony Richardson injury and just kept this team going and winning games. So good on them. The Colts 7-5 in the thick of the playoff picture. The Titans 4-8. Their season all but over.
Yeah, up definitely. King Henry is back. Nice saying that for the 2nd week in a row. Spears stock everywhere. Grab him if you don't have him and he's on waivers. I definitely think his time is coming. The Downs, yeah, Titan offense late. Someone's seat as an OC might have just gotten a little bit warmer. Titans special teams, seriously, what were you on
They
today?
fired their special teams coach after this game. 2 block punts.
I mean, that was just, anytime you got to the special teams, it was almost like you needed the Yakety Sax music out there. I mean,
yeah, apparently the Colts, they saw a look on tape, said if we see this look, we can make the block punt. And they got 2 of them. That's not a good look if you're a special teams coach to have a tell like that.
Yeah, and the final thing that's down, yeah, that would be Zach Moss's Week 13 fantasy value.
Titans good run defense, so not a huge surprise, but hopefully he'll have some better weeks coming forward until Jonathan Taylor is back, which again, Shane Steichen did not rule him out for week 14 as of yet. We'll see, was his comment when saying if
And,
he could play this week.
and now a game that didn't go to OT.
No, a game that didn't go to overtime at all and went pretty much exactly as you would expect. The Dolphins win 45-15 over the Commanders. Tyreek, 2 deep touchdown passes. The 2 touchdown passes were almost 140 yards combined. Only those 2 touchdown passes was sat late in this game because they didn't need them anymore. Achane came back, had a couple touchdowns. This was the Dolphins' offense, defense you wanted to see. The defense has been much better of late. Yes, they're not playing the top flight competition, but since Jalen Ramsey's come into the lineup, Chiefs with 21 points, that included a defensive touchdown, is the high water mark for scoring since Jalen Ramsey has come back. Keep in mind, early season 20s, 30s, 48 against Buffalo, for example, not unheard of for the Dolphins. For the Commanders, they fall to 4-9. They right now would have the number 4 pick in the NFL draft. The Dolphins improved to 9-3, and at the time of that game concluding, were the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, 2 ups for this game. Definitely double T to attack Tagovailoa. Did a good job of managing the pocket, avoiding the rush, and keeping his eyes downfield. And Tyreek Hill notched 2, as you mentioned it, 60-plus scores. He definitely wears the crown as the best wide receiver in football, and you can imagine Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid is like the Wolverine theme with the iPad on it and the pictures of Tyreek Hill because they're missing him big time in KC.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to KC in a little bit, but
The-
Tyreek Hill would make the Kansas City Chiefs the best team in football, and they need that piece. They do not have it. Next up,
got 2 downs. Go
ahead with the downs.
Sam Howell made some nice throws, but yeah, that interception was bad to the bone.
Yeah,
and
Yinkle.
he looked like he was constantly on the run, like the Paul McCartney song, "Band on the Run." As Terry McLaurin, of course, saw just three targets and converted absolutely 0 into catches. As he was definitely a no-show today.
Yeah. I had a team put up 172 points this week with Terry McLaurin and Tank Dell starting. Now, Terry McLaurin had a terrible week. Tank Dell, we'll get to this game now. The saddest injury of the week is the rookie was absolutely on fire. A broken fibula. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. He had a surgery to repair it. Should be fine for 2024. So good news, it's not a super long-term injury, but this late in the season is going to shelf him for the rest of the campaign. But good news for the Texans. They do get the win over the Broncos 22-17. They move to 7-5. And they are in the thick of the wild card race. The Houston Texans look like a very dangerous team as we get to the postseason. The Broncos falling to 6-6. I don't think this is a bad loss for them. They didn't play their best football, but they hung tough with a very good team. They're still in the playoff race as well. This is going to hurt because now a head-to-head tiebreaker against another team in that wild card race. Not great, but with teams like Pittsburgh, with teams like Cleveland, injured quarterbacks just ahead of them, they can still find a way in. But the Texans 7-5, very impressive first season for D'Amico Ryans, for C.J. Stroud, and a very good rookie campaign that has now come to an end for Tank Dell.
Yeah, definite up for this game was Nico Collins having an absurd 191 stat on the lines on the Broncos defense, who have been playing up until week 13 elite football. And now, of course, with, as you mentioned, Dell likely out for the near future, Collins will be relied on more than ever, just as he was in the game where he just absolutely abused the Denver defense all afternoon. The down, yeah, it would be one Devin Singletary because you have Damian Pierce returning as a Singletary's once prominent role has been diminished with the originally back in the fold. Though Singletary did look to be fresher and more effective with his touches, coaches are definitely clearly committed to rocking with Pierce for now, but I think that tends to definitely help out the Texans as they were a one-dimensional team, but now if you have 2 backs on the ground ready to ground and pound, I think that makes them even more dangerous.
Yeah, Texans, I think it'll be Damian Pierce, but if they can get that two-headed monster going, Noah Brown as well. Keep an eye on him for fantasy waivers. He was injured for a little bit. If he's out there, he could be the one that steps up and take Dell's absence. Next up, Bucks got the win, but
messy game.
outside of Mr. 1000 Mike Evans, who's got his 10th consecutive year out of 10 with 1,000+ receiving yards already, the Bucs weren't that great. They do win 21-18, but they played the Panthers. The Panthers fall to 1-11. They have the number one overall pick, given that it goes to Chicago. They're probably going to finish at about a 1 or a 2 win team if they're lucky. The Bucs, one game back of the Falcons as a result of this game, and that's who they play next week. So the Bucs can get back into the playoff conversation properly. I mean, they will be the rest of the way because the NFC South is what it is. But yeah, not a great game for the Bucs. They do get the win, which is important. The Panthers, Miles Sanders is just on a milk carton. Chuba Hubbard with the new coaching staff seems to be the way they are going. And Adam Thielen absolutely has disappeared of late.
Yeah, definitely. I'm mentioning that in my downs. As for the up, Mike Evans, it was a vintage monster day for the Bucs all-world wide receiver who definitely might have a gold jacket in his future.
First ballot, I think.
Rashad White continues to show he's an all-purpose back where he was fading in the first half of fantasy football. He is really rising to the occasion. Big time late being a super stud. Chuba Hubbard, 2 scores and over 100 yards on the ground. Nice day for the oft-consistent back with the oft-inconsistent team, but somebody's got to score. The downs. Baker Mayfield, he made one good throw all day. I was watching most of this game. I can corroborate that. Otherwise, Mike Evans did all the work for him. As you mentioned, Adam Thielen, if he got you in the fantasy playoffs, thanks to his hot start, it's time to jump ship and find something else. And another one different cause for concern. Chris Godwin, super stud 22, kind of vanishing in 23.
Yeah, Godwin's having a tough year. Adam Thielen, I traded in a dynasty league for a second-round pick 3 weeks ago, right before the cliff was hit. I flipped that second-round pick later for Deontay Johnson because injuries and all that. So I'm pretty happy with that move because Deontay Johnson, while not exceptional and now having to deal with Mitch Trubisky, has a much longer career in front of him than Adam Thielen, and at this point is the better player. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. We're competitive for a while with the LA Rams until the Rams decided to put it in overdrive and just dominate. Kyrie Williams, another big game. Puka Nacua, another big game. Cooper Kupp in the end zone for the first time in a little while. So complete game from the Rams as they win 36-19. Joe Flacco, for a guy who came in off the street, off his couch, wasn't great, but wasn't terrible. This was a 20-19 game before a very bad interception kind of snowballed out of control. And the Rams eventually take this. At the time of this game's ending at 6-6, they were the number 7 seed. Of course, they had some games after them that could affect their spot. The Browns, with this loss, fall to 7-5. They're in danger of falling out of the playoffs, which, of course, without Deshaun Watson, not a huge surprise. Both teams with playoff aspirations, though, but it feels like the Rams are going up, Browns are going down.
Yeah, up definitely. Puka. Rams rookie season receiving yards record. Enough said, Ned. The downs. Amari Cooper, the quality of targets continues to decline, and he was concussed towards the end of the game. It's just like, boy, just Browns good teams first half, kind of fading second half. As you're kind of wondering. You wonder what they're going to do if something happens to Wacko. So just you don't even want to think about that. And the Browns D got torched in the air and on the ground big time. Rams get it done.
Worth noting, Dorian Thompson-Robinson still is the starter when healthy. He's still in the concussion protocol from the massive hit he took the week before. So Flacco would technically still be the backup. So if something happens to him, it would go to PJ Walker, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson should be back either this week or next, depending on how severe that concussion is. But the Browns, they're in free fall. A lot of the teams with these backup quarterbacks are starting to look like they are in free fall. So teams like the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and Niners, we're about to talk about this. The teams that still have their starting quarterback. Those are the teams you have to look out for the rest of the way. And it might just be as simple as that. Looking at the playoff pictures, do you have your starter or do you not have your starter at the quarterback position? That could be the difference between the Colts and the Texans, frankly, for that wild card spot or even the division. Next up, a game that
It looked a lot better on paper than in reality.
somehow went exactly how I thought it would at the same time. The Eagles-Niners game. Niners win 42-19. The Eagles dominant in the first half. -6 yards total for the 49ers before allowing 42 points on 6 consecutive drives. Deebo Samuel talked a lot of trash about the Eagles getting lucky after the trip advancing the Super Bowl NFC Championship game to the injury to Brock Purdy, and he backed it up with 3 touchdown plays, a rush and 2 receptions. Him and DK Metcalf on the 172-point team, by the way, makes sense. The Eagles, man, worst performance they've had all season. They
Yikes.
looked like they were not in the same caliber, the same capability, even the same league as the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are
Their luck
16.
potion hath run out.
Yeah, the Niners are 16-0 in games that are started and finished by Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey as a trio, and this one was no exception. Big games from everybody that you would hope for the Niners. Not the biggest games, but you got enough out of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith as well. Reinforcements for the Eagles, though, are coming as they have a big showdown with Dallas, as Dallas Goedert expect to be back for week number 14.
Yeah, the good for this game, Hurts third quarter brotherly shove TD. Then you had, of course, Devontae Smith making up for his little faux pas because he had a third quarter offensive pass interference call. Eagles were rolling, and of course, the Smith call could have sidetracked that, but Smith made up for it with the next play with a 50-yard reception. So it's kind of rubbing it out, like sort of like white out. Okay, that didn't happen. And yeah, Eagles' luck has finally ran out. Down? Yeah, Eagles getting massively out coached, and Purdy with a clean pocket all afternoon. I actually have a new category. I have a new category for this game. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm going to talk about. As I have that was different. The Eagles head of security going all WWE and getting a 49ers linebacker ejected.
Greenlaw also ejected in that exchange. The Eagles, after this week, 10-2, still the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Niners now 1 game back at 9-3. The Cowboys and the Lions also 1 game behind at 9-3. So the NFC, by virtue of this Eagles loss, got a lot tighter this week. All right, next up, Sunday Night Football, where the Packers upset the Kansas City Chiefs 27-19. It seems to me every time Taylor Swift comes to a Chiefs game, the opposing cornerback balls out. Jordan Love outplayed Patrick Mahomes in this game, a la Zach Wilson a few weeks back when he got to play in front of Taylor Swift. He outplayed Pat Mahomes in that game as well. So all the Swifties might think Pat Mahomes is a bad quarterback, but it's really he just has nobody to throw it to other than Travis Kelce. The Packers, though, 27-19 win gets them to 6-6. They are the 7 seed in the NFC and on a 3-game winning streak. Romeo Doubs, Wicks coming all together. The big caveat to this one is Christian Watson down with a hamstring injury. Not sure how long it's going to sideline him, but it has been a chronic concern of his. The Chiefs, though, with this loss, they fall behind the Dolphins and Ravens in the AFC at 8-4. Joel's looking for the ups and downs, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry because I got distracted by something. We're at the fish. We're at
Kansas
the
City Packers.
Kansas City Packers. Sorry, it was like something happened that okay. Chiefs and Packers. Yeah, the ups. Sorry. Yeah, Jordan Love definitely another rung on the ladder climb for Love, who is stepping up as a fantasy quarterback to note after the accomplished showing up against Mahomes. And yeah, I know a lot of people kind of probably picked him up maybe in the draft, going, yeah, I don't know how well he's going to really do. He's really surprising everyone, big time, and Packers might make some noise. I don't know how deep they're going to go, but they're definitely going to make some noise in the downs. You know this if you have Aaron Jones missing through injury. Once again, veteran back could see himself on the outside looking in going forward after Dillon provided both strength and speed in the run game. But you're just getting tired of seeing out, 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 out. And of course, the other down, besides me losing my place and trying to figure out where I'm going on to, Yeah, that'd be everyone who picked the Chiefs this week because there's a freezing cold take that literally everybody on the pre-show had picked the
Yeah.
Chiefs. Oops.
Yeah, we also picked the
Mhm.
Chiefs in this game, and the Packers, very young offensive core, looks like they're gelling very nicely. If the defense can hold up, that NFC is, I mean, given you got the teams at the top, but they could make some noise. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contending team this year, but they could definitely make some noise in the playoffs. And finally, we go to Monday Night Football, where the Jaguars had a chance to win and take the number one overall seed away in the AFC from the Dolphins, and they did not. As the Cincinnati Bengals, behind a stellar performance from Jake Browning, win 34-31. Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, monster games. Jamar Chase did what he needed to do. Big loss for the Jaguars in this one, as Christian Kirk is done for the year with a core muscle injury. He will be requiring surgery. He'll be out for the rest of the campaign. Calvin Ridley did not step up in his place, but it was Washington who had a good performance. And, of course, Evan Ingram, against one of the worst tight end defensive teams, had his first touchdown in God knows how long. The Bengals, at 6-6, they find themselves in the log jam in the AFC playoff picture. Despite losing Joe Burrow, the Jaguars lose a golden opportunity to not only extend their lead in the AFC South, but to get that number one overall seed for at least just now. They do fall to 8-4. The Bengals 6-6, but the story of the week really was Jake Browning's performance on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, because absolutely kind of nutso game. Unfortunately, you had not only the injury to T-Law, but also Christian Kirk. So that's kind of crazy. As no, that's just one of those you start in fantasy like boom. What do you mean you're out? And then you look at groin injury. That just sort of makes you every guy
Yeah.
wince whenever you hear that. You're just like aha, aha, aha. Ups for this game, definitely Jake Browning, one of the best performances from any quarterback all season, completing 86% of his passes. Not too shabby for a backup. Joe Mixon made amends for his disappointing week 12, heavily used in the passing game as well. And you want to talk about fantasy beatdown. Evan Ingram, his first touchdown at home as a Jaguar, caught all 9 targets. And you just have such a variance flying, in fantasy that I'm like, oh, he's on my bench. And then you're checking about how badly the other team totally obliterated me. You go, if I'd started him, still wouldn't have helped.
That's the best thing about fantasy is when you get blown out, sometimes you're just like, I couldn't have done anything about it. The injury to Trevor Lawrence does appear to be a high ankle sprain, questionable for this upcoming week, but as a quarterback, you're not cutting, you're not running the same way as you do as a running back or receiver, so shouldn't be as detrimental of an injury, but we'll see how fast he can come back.
Yeah, my down's definitely T. Higgins. Minimal targets in his first game back. Disappointed you. And Calvin Ridley, 9 targets and 3 carries. Not much to throw for it. Of course, way down. Kirk leaving early, going to miss extended time. And of course, brutal injury to T-Law late. And will he play in week 14? Yeah. Worse, it was his own lineman.
I mean, when he went down, the way he went down, the way he got up and went back down, uh, it didn't seem like week 14 was even in play. It seemed like he was going to be gone for an extended period of time, and that was going to be really tough for the Jaguars this season going
Oh,
forward. CJ Beathard, it'll be fine for a game or two. Of course, they are playing the Browns, so it could be a CJ Beathard, Joe Flacco, or CJ Beathard, Dorian Thompson
oh,
Robinson game. There's a lot of great quarterback matchups that we are going to have to talk about on another show.
Sports Shuffle Audible.
Mm.
What do you make of all the criticism of not putting Trevor Lawrence on the cart and they walked him to the locker room?
I said that when it happened. I was like, dude, put the guy on a cart. Now, I don't know if the cart guy was doing the Austin Powers, got stuck halfway between the walls facing this way and couldn't get around. But you saw him. They went to him walking, limping with two people basically carrying him 5 minutes after he was taken off the field, still trying to get back to the locker room. You're telling me there's not a golf cart, ambulance, maintenance cart, dolly, nothing with wheels you could have sat him on and brought him back there a little bit quicker so he can get, I don't know, off his injured ankle, foot, knee, whatever. Because at the time, the way he got rolled up, you really weren't sure what it was. It could have been a number of things. And you just have him hobble back. It was, it's a bad look for Jacksonville. Just get the cart, take the rakes off the grounds maintenance cart, put him on that, get him to the back. Don't make him walk, several hundred yards to the locker room when he can barely walk at all on his own. I mean, he took half a step and fell back down on the field. He could not walk on his own. All right, before we get to the Thursday night spectacular, let's go over the
Hashtag
playoff.
definite sarcasm.
Definite. Let's go over the playoff seedings through week number 13. We're starting to get a very clear picture of at least the top of the conferences. Starting in the AFC, the Dolphins, the number 1 seed at 9-3 via conference record over the 9-3 Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have a pretty tough schedule coming up, as do the Dolphins, so plenty of time for these to be adjusted. The Chiefs at 3, the Jaguars at 4, both teams at 8-4. Chiefs facing the Bills in what is a very critical matchup for both teams. Number 5 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, Mitch Trubisky coming in. They do play the Patriots, so maybe they can get away with it this week, but eventually the quarterback concern is going to be there and really hurt. The Colts, 7-5, the 6th seed. They play those upstart Bengals with the Browning. If Browning can do what he did on Monday Night Football or even close to it, that's going to be a competitive team the rest of the way. And at 7, the Browns at 7-5. They are slipping. They play the Jaguars in a very big game for both teams. On the outside, looking in at number 8, the Houston Texans at 7-5, still aspirations of winning the AFC South, but at least a playoff opportunities in hand as they play the Jets this week. Broncos at 6-6 play the Chargers, good chance to get a win. The Bills 6-6 at the 10 seed with the Chiefs. This could be a very detrimental game if the Bills find a way to lose that to the Chiefs. The Chiefs though have been looking quite beatable, so hopefully it's the game we expect, even though it's not the game we expect, if you know what I mean. At 11, the Cincinnati Bengals 6-6 playing the Colts, a big game for both teams. Chargers against the Broncos 5-7. I think from here on out, a loss, you're out for the Chargers. Raiders also 5-7 play the Vikings. A loss, I think they're done. Jets might already be done, but they play the Houston Texans. They're the 14 seed at 4-8. Titans playing the top seeded Dolphins at 4-8 and the number 15 slot. I think their season's about done. And not quite eliminated officially, but the Patriots at 2-10, just on the doorstep of proper elimination. In the NFC, the Eagles still holding on that 1 seed despite the loss at 10-2. The Niners in second at 9-3. Lions 9-3 in third. Falcons, by way of winning the NFC South, are at 6-6. They're the 4 seed. 5th seed is the Dallas Cowboys. Second place in the NFC East, but first wild card at 9-3. Vikings 6-6. They are tied with the Packers in the NFC North, but ahead of them by way of the tiebreaker. But those Packers at 6-6 are the number 7 seed. On the outside looking in, Rams and Seahawks in that order, 8-9, 6-6 each. Buccaneers, Saints 5-7, 10-11. The Giants, Bears, both at 4-8, 12-13. Commanders 4-9. The Cardinals 3-10 at 15, and officially eliminated from playoff contention, the 1-11 Carolina Panthers. And with that, we go to the biggest game this Thursday night. It is the biggest game this Thursday night that we can possibly talk about because, as far as I know, it's the only game on Thursday Night Football. It is the 2-10 New England Patriots against the 7-5 Pittsburgh Steelers. It is the battle between Bailey Zappi and Mitch Trubisky. Najee Harris nursing an injury, so Jaylen Warren could be a great play. In past performances with Mitch Trubisky at the quarterback position, Deontay Johnson's gotten more targets than with Kenny Pickett, so it could be a sneaky good fantasy play for New England. If you're going to play someone, it's Zeke Elliott, and I'm sorry if you are in that desperate of a situation. Both defenses should be very highly considered, as this game has an over-under of 30, and I believe it'll drop under that before kickoff tomorrow night. Joel, I know everybody's going to watch this game because it's the only one on, but we don't want to. But who gets the win?
All right, time for the Thursday Night Football. Picking my nose here as Pat's only lost to the Chargers 6-0. So while their offense is absolute dog poop, their defense is decent. The Steelers lost Pickett for a while, so we have Mr. Mitch now behind center. So it's hard picking either of these teams. But, while the Pats did get the shutout by a horrible Chargers team, I tend to think the Steelers had the worst day. 2 very long ass rain delays, along with a short week, and losing their main man from the fantasy playoffs. I can't believe I know I'm saying this. I know I'm going to probably regret this, but somehow I think the Pats D somehow pulls a win out of their butt, and the Steelers lose a very ugly game, like 10-6 ugly, and the Steelers are more tired after the long game. I can't believe it, but if Kenny Pickett were behind center, I might lean the Steelers because I know that both basically it's Bailey Zappi because Mac Jones sucks, and it's Mitch Trubisky because Kenny Pickett got knocked out. So, but I'm giving the slight edge to the Patriots here because they got to win sometime.
I made the mistake of picking New England last week in an upset. I'm not doing that again this week. I'm taking Pittsburgh, even though it's Mitch Trubisky. I think he's still better than Bailey Zappi. Patriots offense has gotten just next, and I think they've gotten 13 points in the last 3 games. Again, they've held the teams that they faced to a combined 26 points the last 2 weeks, and they're 0-3. And I think honestly that Pittsburgh's defense is good enough to get it in easy scoring position, if not score one themselves, and that's going to be the difference. I do think your 10-6 prediction is probably pretty good for a score. I just think Pittsburgh gets the job done. And we're going to disagree on Thursday Night Football. Of course, Joel, not quite updated behind me, does have a 12-game lead because that New England pick of mine last week. But yeah, hopefully you can pick one up on Thursday night in the game. Unfortunately, we're all going to watch. So with that, let's go to final thoughts with Joel.
My final thought is why are we having a 49ers Seahawks game so soon after the Turkey Day game with somebody asleep in scheduling? That's my final thought. That's really a question, but it's just sort of you're looking at the schedule going, didn't we just do this game?
Yeah, they do that a lot, especially with divisional games late in the season. I know the Jets play the Dolphins again in another week or so, and they just played the Black Friday game. So not uncommon to see, but I do wish they would space them out a little bit, especially when it's 2 of the better teams. Friendly reminder that Week 18, we're also going to see New England and the Jets play
And
head to head.
1B definitely for fantasy purposes because of the atmospheric river. That's what they're calling the storm because they have to call every storm something, right? I mean, that's what you get when you watch weather TV. But yeah, just make sure fantasy playoffs check your weather this week, especially for like the Great Lakes and teams and games near there.
Yeah, if you're in the Ohio River Valley, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, teams like that, keep an eye. You might get some through the south. It looks like the worst of the weather is going to go through as of now in the late afternoon, evening time. The game is in Dallas at night, so I don't think it's going to be too bad. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was last week, but there will be some weather delays. My final thought is going to be to finish the update on the disc golf tournament. It didn't finish as well as I had hoped. Did not have my best round, but finished 6th overall. Lost by 7. Really bad start to the round. Started with 4 over through 3 and didn't quite get it rolling as much as I needed to recover from that, but still finished better than I think I expected, but definitely worse than I had hoped. Another tournament the next 2 weekends on Saturday, so more updates to come. And with that, that is our time. Week 14, last week of the fantasy football regular season. So if you are one of those teams in that 4 to 7, 4 to 8 range in your playoffs, you're battling for that last playoff spot, focus up. Make sure you got good waivers. Make sure your lineup is 100% set and you are good to go. And it's almost time for the fantasy football playoffs, and fantasy football will be gone before we know it. So enjoy it while you've got it. Make sure you are ready for whatever can be possibly thrown your way. And with that, I am Flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
And we'll be back on Friday to do the rest of the picks for week number 14 and get everybody ready for that last slate of Sunday games before the fantasy football playoffs. And with that, we go.